I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright. It is Friday. We made it to the end of the week.
Emmy, Oscar, or Tony tonight, Ms. Wolf.
I'm getting ready.
A little red carpet attire. You look
I like
lovely.
to be ready 12 hours before an event. So clearly I've chosen to do that.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you very much. It's very nice of you. You were all very dapperly dressed this morning, so I take the compliments.
Thank you very much. But,
yes.
I mean, we are all fighting for second place this morning. Cece probably, what up, C? You about to say something sideways?
Nothing. You guys look nice. It's an important day. It's Friday the 13th. It's your anniversary, right?
It is my anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you very much. Happy 5-year anniversary to my wonderful wife. I appreciate that, you guys.
That's very nice.
I'm actually, what?
Danielle, God consider it 10, because he know you working on the relationship even when this clown is asleep. Okay. We with you. Prayers to you.
Thank you for saying that. It's very nice of you.
All right, we got a good show.
Yeah, let's
do it. Got a
do
lot of basketball to talk about. Big weekend coming up.
Bad beat for my wife that our anniversary week
falls
is
on you.
first week into the NBA
Surprised
playoffs.
it wasn't the Super Bowl. Equally as disturbing.
No, she saw the playoff schedule.
Right, she knew.
She's an NBA wife.
Yeah.
The NBA playoffs are finally upon us. The second season, as it's called, kicks off tomorrow at 3 Eastern, which gives us exactly 33 hours to analyze, overanalyze, and double analyze. First game up, the Warriors and the Spurs. Both teams missing their driver. Warriors have no Steph. Spurs have no Kawhi. So do the Spurs have a chance to beat Golden State with their current roster? Golden State's Draymond Green weighs in.
I'm operating under the sense of it don't matter, you know. Whoever they put on the floor, that's a team that's going to compete no matter what. So I'm not about to play part in the whole Kawhi. Is Kawhi playing, is he not? Like, that's on them. I got to be ready to play no matter who's out there on the floor. So my approach is the same.
So here's what we know, CC. There will be no Steph Curry, at least for Game 1. There will be no Kawhi, at least for Game 1. So let's just start with Game 1, and then we'll get into the series. Do the Spurs have any chance to beat Golden State at this point with the current rosters?
Of course they have a chance. The way that Golden State has played basketball, we know that Popovich will come up with a good game plan. I'm glad the way you situated the question, too, was winning Game 1. Like, let's start now. Yes, this is the NBA. What if they get one player that gets hot, if they get great productivity off their bench, if Golden State has the same type of attitude that we're just going to walk through this the way they did the last third of the season, and Steph Curry's not there.
Right.
So I understand what Draymond is saying. Oh, regardless, we're going to be ready. If Kawhi is going to be there, if Kawhi's not going to be there, there's a certain amount of preparation. But this is the NBA. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge could go for 40 points. You know, what if they get in foul trouble? What if one of the Golden State Warriors gets dinged, gets nicked early in the game? What if Clay re-injures his hand or his thumb? Like, there's a lot of things that can happen. So, yes, that's the reason why we're going to watch this game. It's not because San Antonio doesn't have any chance. It's because we've been watching sports long enough to realize that's what you watch for. You watch for an upset. You watch for things to happen. And, yes, are they shorthanded? Yes, they are. Is Golden State a heavy favorite? Yes, they are. But I just believe that Popovich will put them in a game plan that will have them in the game. Now, if Golden State decides to come out and be like, listen, we are the reigning NBA champs, we're going to ratchet up our defense. If Kevin Durant, if Steve Kerr comes up with a plan to either have Kevin Durant initiate the offense or Draymond Green initiate the offense, which I believe will lead to San Antonio getting lost in this game, yeah, I could see Golden State also running away from them. They should. They have more talent. They should be able to dominate them.
The Warriors losing this series would be on par with the greatest first-round upsets in NBA history. Like, people think of, when they think of first-round upsets, I think they remember Dikembe Mutombo holding the ball over his head when the Nuggets beat the Sonics, or Allen Houston's runner when the Knicks beat the Heat. Those were 8-over-1s. Mm-hmm. But those were in a 5-game series era, when it was a lot easier to execute this type of upset because the shorter the series, the bigger chance of an upset. That's why you see more upsets in the NCAA tournament, for example. That's a 1-game series. Since we've gone to 7 games, the biggest upset that we've ever seen did involve the Golden State Warriors, but a totally different iteration of them. The Baron Davis Golden State Warriors as the 8 seed, beating Dirk Nowitzki, MVP Dirk Nowitzki, and the Dallas Mavericks. I would put this, if the Spurs were to win, I would put this on par, if not greater than that. Because at least in that series, you saw some matchup weaknesses that potentially those Warriors could exploit against these Mavericks. To me, there is only one path to the Spurs being competitive in this series, much less winning it. And it's one thing you mentioned and kind of glossed over. You said, what if LaMarcus Aldridge goes for 40? I watched LaMarcus Aldridge up close and personal in games 1 and 2 when he was still with Portland, when they were playing Houston in the first round, go for 46 and 18 and follow it up with 43 and 8. Back-to-back playoff games of 43-plus points, and the Blazers won those 2 games. The only shot to me the Spurs have, forget winning the series, of winning more than a game in this is if LaMarcus Aldridge channels what he has been known to do in a few playoff series, which is, I'm going to go be the best player on a court. He was the best player on a court in a series with Damian Lillard, James Harden, and Dwight Howard. And when Dwight Howard was better then than he is now. Right. And LaMarcus Aldridge dominated. That is, to me, the only shot the Warriors have game 1, game 2, any of the games.
Well, then here's a question. If LaMarcus Aldridge is going to have to step up for the Spurs, and obviously KD is going to step up for the Warriors, who right now going into this series has more pressure on them, CC?
Golden State. There ain't no pressure on San Antonio.
No, LaMarcus Aldridge or Kevin Durant?
Oh, Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge did not have the type of regular season last year that he wanted. He came back, asked Pop for a trade. Pop told him, hey, man, go out and get me an all-star. Go out and get me someone. He came back this regular season. Man, if Kawhi Leonard, this would have been a really exciting Western Conference, the season. Because the way LaMarcus played, if we had Kawhi playing to the level that we're used to him playing, it could have been a very entertaining season. But it's on KD. KD's the final MVP. LaMarcus got them to the playoff. Their streak of making it to the playoffs has continued. The storyline there would be all the season without Kawhi. It won't be on LaMarcus. So all that pressure to me lies on KD.
The pressure, 100% agree with you. A little nuance to, I think what you're getting at is who's more important to their team's success. In that regard, I think it's Aldridge. I think the Warriors can win this series with KD being mediocre. Because they have Clay, because they have Draymond, because they have home court. Spurs need LaMarcus to be a triple plus to have any shot in this series, because now they
struggle scoring the basketball.
Right. That's the thing. They have a better overall on the season team defense than Golden State. In the playoffs, I would imagine, especially since you're going to be without Steph Curry, which should actually help your defense. I think defensively these teams are about equal. The big discrepancy in this, the Spurs were slightly below league average in offense, 17th in offense. The Warriors were jockeying with the Rockets all year to have the best offense and one of the 10 best offenses in the history of the sport. Even though that offense is muted somewhat or to a great deal without Steph, they can still outscore you so easily. One thing CC's taught me is try to think, even if you're certain one thing's going to happen, it's sports, so you can never be that certain. So try to work backwards. Try to think about, if I'm wrong, what would have to happen for me to be wrong?
What would the storyline be?
Right. The only way we are talking about this series where it's 2-2 going to Game 5, and, man, all of a sudden what's going on with Golden State is if the front line for the San Antonio Spurs, Rudy Gay, LaMarcus Aldridge, Pau Gasol with a throwback performance, the front line for them overpowers Golden State, gets them into foul trouble early, gets Draymond frustrated, maybe gets Draymond kicked out of a game.
Watch the technicals.
Right. Absolutely right. Which could, by the way, the technical, CC, you get these guys frustrated, gets a flagrant or a technical. We saw that catch up to Golden State in later rounds a couple years ago, even if it doesn't affect them there. So for the Spurs to have a shot, their 3 big people have to be extraordinary.
All right, well, this is the first game that kicks off tomorrow at 3 Eastern, Spurs and Golden State. We'll talk much more about this and the other matchups throughout the morning. But coming up, a little football. Jarvis Landry got paid. How much? Next on First Things First. New topic. Now, this one is called A Football Player is Getting Paid. So at least you know we're not talking about Odell or Dez. But it is Odell's former LSU teammate and current BFF, Jarvis Landry. After being traded to the Browns earlier this season, the soon-to-be fifth-year pro signed a 5-year, $75 million contract extension, $47 million of that guaranteed. In his first 4 years in the NFL, Landry has 400 catches with 22 touchdowns. So, CeCe, how does Landry's monster deal impact Odell Beckham Jr.?
I don't think it has an impact on Odell, what he's going to get. I think the market's already been set with Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, those guys. And typically what we see, you're going to try to get a certain percentage higher than the guy that's at your position because their deals are old. You try to bring it retroactive to right now. So I don't think it's going to have any impact on it. If you look at his overall productivity, and the Miami Dolphins had franchised him, he was going to get 14 to 15 million, regardless if it was going to be the Browns or someone else. And he has been consistent for the Miami Dolphins. You can argue, oh, man, his yards per catch, they should be higher. That was the offense. That wasn't his fault. He did the best he could in the offense. So I believe he's a good player, and that's what a good wide receiver is going to get you. It's not an astronomical contract for a wide receiver. It's what the market will bear right now. And it's apropos. I would have said he could have gotten even more if he hadn't gone to a place like Cleveland.
Wow. So it's not astronomical for wide receivers as a whole. It is a market setter for slot wide receivers. And so either Cleveland...
I don't think they slotted him like that.
Okay, well, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Cleveland is not viewing either. They're fine with totally resetting the market for a slot wide receiver, or they're not viewing him as that. That's what he was in Miami. They must not, I would imagine, they're not viewing him like that. The knock on Jarvis Landry is what CeCe mentioned, the yards per catch.
Yeah, I think a slot receiver, too, is a guy that couldn't start. It's not only size, what their expertise is, short area quickness, but it's also, are they a starter? Are they my number one or my number two guy? Typically, the third guy is moved in the slot. Jarvis Landry is not that. So they did not reset the market for slot receivers in paying him that $15 million.
The concern is what CeCe mentioned, which is is he more than just a guy that's going to be a high-volume catcher without a lot of yards involved? Now, Cleveland, we believe they are leaning towards either Sam Darnold or more likely Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen, the reason you'd be drafting him is because amazing arm talent, ability to throw the ball down the field. You don't sign a receiver like this if you have those concerns about him that I do. That he's a guy that is making the most, actually, of the Miami offense as far as exploiting those short catches, but not have the ability to be a deep threat. They clearly...
But I could argue he's not the best receiver on the Browns team. They got a guy named Josh Gordon.
Right.
Who's coming back. Well, he'll be with the team for the continuum where he hadn't missed any time, the off-season workouts. Like, I could argue, man, I'm looking forward to seeing Josh Gordon after playing a few games this year. I hadn't forgot about his talent. So right now, I'm not going to surrender that Landry, he's going to be the number one option. So the quarterback might not matter because if Josh Gordon is the player I think he is their deep threat.
Well, then I know that we get crosswise sometimes when we talk about the contracts, but you only have so much money to spend. He is being paid like a number one receiver. Now, they have the benefit of Josh Gordon's being paid like a number 7 receiver. He's getting paid less than, or right around $1 million a year. Like, in order for this to be money well spent, he has to at least have the upside of a number one receiver. I mean, you mentioned Julio Jones. I understand it's because he's signed it more recently, but he now makes more money per year than Julio Jones. When we're talking about Odell, he's going to be comparing himself to Mike Evans and Antonio Brown. Mike Evans, who signed for nearly $17 million a year, and Antonio Brown, who signed for $17 million.
How do you think this affects Odell's contract?
I mean, I think we have an obvious basement. Like, if you think that he got 5 years, $75 million, I think Odell can legitimately say, well, I am far, far better than this player, and this player's making $15 million a year. This is why I think I should make $20 million.
The other players on a team that had $100 million in cap space, too. So sometimes you're fishing, but you're fishing in the wrong holes. Like, he shouldn't be comparing himself to this player at all. And the opportunity, because he got franchised and they decided to make a trade for him, they had to pay him this contract. So Odell's in a different situation. I don't think Landry's contract will be part of the conversation as far as Odell, because I don't believe, besides being in the league the same time and them playing together in college, there's nothing you can compare in Odell's game than you can to Jarvis Landry's game.
The reason that he's Landry, unless there's someone I'm forgetting, and I don't think there is, assuming Odell is going to contract this offseason, Landry will be the most recent wide receiver contract given out. Like, there's not another guy that we look at and say, oh, he's about to at this position. Not like Aaron Donald. We think Aaron Donald's about to get a huge deal,
right,
so that will affect other defensive linemen. The only other, I would say, premier, if that's how you view Jarvis Landry, wide receiver other than Odell that was going to get a deal this offseason was Jarvis Landry. And CeCe's point can't be forgotten, which is there is a bit of a Jimmy Garoppolo factor here, which is when you trade for a guy and he's not under a long-term contract, you're only doing that if you plan on giving him a long-term contract.
And you traded for a guy who had a franchise tag.
Right, so he had a one-year salary built in already.
Yes.
That was average of the top 5 players at his position in the league. So he was in a position to be, based on his production, paid more than you would have slotted him otherwise.
Well, just question about Odell. Is there someone out there whose contract you could look at to see where Odell would be?
He mentioned the two as far as Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. They've been in the league relatively the same time. And the best wide receiver in football, Antonio, and him just getting that contract last season. Those are the numbers that he wants to look at. What percentage can I get over Antonio? Those are the things he should be focused on. Anything outside of that is just going to be a distraction, just getting away.
DeAndre Hopkins last offseason got the $16.2 million average over 5 years. Mike Evans, we mentioned $16.5, and Antonio the $17 million, which is why, by the way, Odell, tell me if you disagree here, see, like, Odell's wishes for 20-plus might be a little optimistic. Like, if the market right now is at 17, he could get 18. He could set the new market. But to set the market by a raise of 15 to 20%.
If Jarvis Landry had gotten $17 million, it would affect Odell. If he had gotten $16 million, $16.5 million, it might affect Odell. But I don't believe it's going to affect where Odell ends up at.
All right. Keep it there. Coming up, hey, how much resistance will the Indiana Pacers put up against the Cavs? We'll break that one down next on First Things. Today's the day that Dez Bryant will finally meet with Cowboys owner Jerry Jones about his future on the team. Yesterday, Dez fired off about 20 tweets.
It's a slow day.
Including one that said, quote, "I never in my life heard so much media try to destroy a single soul." Drama classes are on Saturday. Bryant is scheduled to make $12.5 million as a base salary in 2018. Nick, what should the Cowboys do with Dez?
What should they do with Dez? Hope that he'll be reasonable. Hope that he'll be amenable to some type of pay cut that he can then re-earn via incentives, the thing you laid out a few weeks ago. It's the most logical option for all parties involved. It's the option that I think has the least likelihood of ending in disaster for either party. I don't know that that's what they will do. I don't know that the Dez is to allow for that. Like, I don't know that all parties are going to act logically in this case. But the best logical option is a slight pay cut that will not end up being a pay cut if you play the way you played in years 3, 4, 5 of your career.
I think Dez should go into the meeting trying to see how I can extend my Dallas Cowboy career. How can I help this team? I want to listen to everything Jerry has to say, not go in there with some preconceived idea that I am going to take a pay cut. I'm not going to take a pay cut. I know Jerry Jones. Me and Jerry Jones could come to some type of understanding. And if Dez goes into that meeting, absent of the emotion, absent of the attitude he had yesterday on Twitter, I believe he's a Dallas Cowboy at the end of the conversation.
All right, guess who's chiming in on Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson? One, Tom Brady. And by chiming in, I mean he took to Instagram and used an emoji. The Patriots quarterback said that he's, quote, a beast with a thumbs-up emoji. CeCe, how big of a deal is Brady's endorsement of Lamar Jackson?
I mean, what was Tom Brady going to say? Oh, the kid can't play.
Well, he didn't have to say anything, right? I mean, he wasn't asked about it.
Well, it followed up on all the rumors from yesterday, though. Oh, the Patriots are interested. They have interest in Lamar Jackson. Tom Brady, someone probably asked him during the day. He responded on the gram. He's a beast. it's like normal. Like, they follow the media just like everyone else. They don't read anything. They know about everything going on. So I'm sure Tom heard about it. This is just not a random Tom Brady on a Thursday. Lamar Jackson. You know something? Let me help out Lamar Jackson. All right, let's just be a little bit smarter than that. NFL players, NBA players, they follow the media. Tom Brady knew what the story about New England potentially having some interest in Lamar Jackson. That's why that followed up. So what does it mean to me? Nothing. Like, what's it supposed to mean?
Well, I think I understand the first part of what you said. The second part of what you said is confusing to me. When you say he did it for a reason because of the discussion surrounding Lamar, but then saying it means nothing, like, I agree with the first part. And
it doesn't mean if he can play or not.
Oh, no. No. I don't think any.
I mean, I think that's what's important. Can Lamar play in the NFL?
Oh, well, I think there's another part that's important that I think is maybe the impetus of the question, which is Brady's feelings on if they would draft a quarterback high, draft potentially his heir apparent high. Like that when I saw this, it was less about, because you're right, it's not like Brady's going to be like, this player sucks, this guy can't play in the league. He's not going to do that as an active football player. He probably wouldn't do that as a retired football player. But whether or not it gives you any window into how amenable he is to them using a high draft pick on a player that plays his position, especially in light of what was reported last year that maybe you knew, but a lot of people didn't, which was Brady was not exactly mentoring Jimmy Garoppolo. He wasn't there talking with Jimmy, here's how you do the 7-step drop. So I think that's why this is noteworthy. That you're nonplussed by it, to me, is interesting. That it means nothing to you, because I think for a lot of you, myself included, it was like, oh, Brady's trying to signal, whether it's true or not, trying to signal to the world, I'm cool with whoever they draft. Whether it's a quarterback, whether it's Lamar, whether it's Mason Rudolph, whether they don't draft a quarterback, I'm good with any of it.
Yeah, he's 40 years old. Why would he have a problem with the guy they're going to draft? They've already told him they're going to get a quarterback of the future. He knows that his backup, Brian Hoyer, is not the answer to the future. So he knows that they're going to draft a guy. Why wouldn't Tom Brady be aboard on any guy that they drafted? I mean, and if he wasn't aboard, he wouldn't let us know. My thing is, yesterday the rumor about New England, if New England was interested in Lamar Jackson, we wouldn't know. And now all of a sudden it's followed up by Brady giving them an endorsement. To me, that's a sign to go the other way, that New England's not interested in Lamar Jackson.
Well, I think the reason
this is not how they do business.
Sure. I think one of the reasons this is interesting is because we're coming off a season where Tom Brady is rumored to have gone into Bob Kraft's office and said, hey, you know what? I don't want Jimmy Garoppolo here, and which led us all to believe he's got a couple more years in him. He doesn't want to be looking to the future. He wants to be the main guy. So maybe there's a little bit of a heads up when he goes and endorses a quarterback that the team was rumored to be interested in.
I'm willing to bet you guys some money they don't draft Lamar Jackson.
Oh, I agree with it.
I know. I'm just saying that could be that was the impetus for him.
I agree. I think that, but again, I think you got to put these in separate buckets. Whether or not the Patriots are going to draft this particular quarterback.
Tom Brady has had plenty of comments about college players, and most of them have been a ringing endorsement. Man, this kid's good. Man, this kid's exciting.
Right, but aren't those comments typically when he's asked directly about it? Like the reason that he wasn't, I would feel differently if someone,
it was a press conference,
if someone puts him on the spot. What do you think of Lamar Jackson? Of course, he's going to say
this was on his own.
Right, he made two comments that I know of on Instagram yesterday. One was to LeBron, and one was to Lamar Jackson. Like that's why there is. I mean, you alluded to it. There is a motivation behind it. You're saying the motivation is because it was already in the news, and it might be further Patriot disinformation. Like that's noteworthy to me. Whatever the motivation is, it wasn't a random like. It wasn't where he gets caught off guard and has nothing to say. He made a proactive choice to do it.
Two things. If New England's interested in the player, we wouldn't know. And if New England's interested in a quarterback, I can guarantee you Tom Brady doesn't know which quarterback they're interested in. Like those things, I follow them too much. They're very, very predictable, and this is not how they do business.
All right, let's move on to basketball. The Cavs, they'll take on the Pacers on Sunday to kick off their playoff run as the 4 seed. Last time I checked, LeBron was still on the Cavs roster, so when analyzing this matchup, don't forget to factor that in. Pacers were 3-1 against Cleveland this season, but again, LeBron plays for the Cavs. Nick, what do the Cavs need to do against the Pacers to prepare for the rest of the players? No disrespect, Indiana. I'm just saying this is the question we've come to.
I mean, this is what Coach Fratello said yesterday, that he thinks the Cavs, to a degree, can use the first round as almost some live practice to get ready for what a lot of people thought would be their toughest matchup in these playoffs, the Toronto Raptors. Like, we didn't think Cavs-Raptors would be round 2, but it's looking like, assuming neither one gets upset in round 1, it will be round 2. So the most important thing they have to do is figure out what the hell their rotation is. Period, point blank. Now, every team is going to change their rotation slightly in the postseason. But the Cavs, we saw game 81, their start of the second quarter unit involved 2 centers, Tristan Thompson and Larry Nance Jr. It had 2 centers, 2 point guards in George Hill and Jose Calderon, and the scoring option was JR. Like, that is not a tenable playoff lineup. So figuring out, Ty Lue said yesterday, we're going to have a 10-man rotation in the playoffs. Man, there's only 9 guys that I'm certain are in that rotation. Figuring out who the 10th guy is, if you are going to go with a 10-man rotation. Figuring out how many minutes is important. Do we want all of Kyle Korver's minutes to come with LeBron on the court because he is in such a better position to score with LeBron out there? How are we going to split up Kevin Love LeBron minutes? Like, things that they have not been able to do during the regular season because the roster's been turning over due to injury and due to trade and due to guys coming back from injury repeatedly throughout the year.
Yeah, regardless of who's out there on the court, the Cavs have to play better defense.
Okay.
29th in the NBA. So that they concentrate on that, that's where they can improve instantly. When they throw up the first toss for the tip-off, if they have made a conscious decision, whoever's in the rotation, that being an 8-man rotation, 10-man rotation, we're going to play better defense collectively. The Cavs that's what they should be concentrating on. The other thing, based on Indiana, they don't run a lot of motion the way other teams do. They don't play with a lot of pace. It boils down to they're 28th in the NBA as far as assists per field goal. So they do a lot of one-on-one or pick-and-roll basketball. So collectively, I just believe the defensive emphasis, and as individuals, when they're not assisting on buckets like that, you have to play good individual defense. So who's ever in the rotation, they're going to have to play great team defense. And also from an assist standpoint, Indiana is not moving the ball the way the rest of the teams in the NBA we have seen with the pace and the spacing. So they're more individual efforts. So I believe that collectively each person has to take it personal. And I believe that's the way that they're able to get through this series swiftly.
We're looking past the Pacers. The Pacers did beat them a couple times this season. I know it was a different roster, but they've had 30 different rosters already this season.
Pacers won the season series 3-1. Typically, that would concern you. The reason it doesn't so much is because of what you said, that the first couple games, it was pre-Isaiah coming back. The third game was when Isaiah was back. The fourth game was right before the trade deadline, so they haven't played as this version of the Cavs. CeCe's point about the defense, this is what to watch for. We will find out if Cleveland has a switch to flip. We found out last year in the first round they did. They were 29th in the league in defense, not over the course of the year like they were this year, but from the All-Star break to the end of the season. And then the first round, all of a sudden, LeBron's flying all over the place. The defense is markedly improved. They don't have to be great defensively against the Pacers, but they will have to be good defensively every series post the Pacers. What we'll find out in the first round is, do they have that capability? Do they have the ability to actually be an adequate NBA defense? I believe they do. I think they have the athleticism. I think they have the bodies. But I'd be lying if I said we'd seen it. Even when the Cavs were on their great stretches, it's because the offense was elite. It's not because all of a sudden they were shutting people down defensively. So that's what to watch for. Can they all of a sudden be like, oh, they're only allowing 102 points per 100 possessions instead of 109. Like, those are the things to watch for.
All right, Cavaliers host the Pacers Sunday at 3:30 Eastern. Watch for that. Coming up, is Colin Kaepernick getting close to joining an NFL team? We'll have the latest on that next on First Things First. Welcome back to the show. We're now joined by Chris Canty. What's up, Chris?
Nothing much, Jenna. Sun's out, guns out. So you got the arms.
Yes.
Glowing.
Yeah,
there you go.
You go get
I
it,
see you.
Chris Canty.
That's what you told me.
In her Oscar,
Sun's
in her
out,
red
guns out.
Off
carpet
the air,
dress.
Chris.
Sun's out,
I
guns
told
out.
you
She
that
did tell
off
you
the
that.
air.
You got to be some kind of who you are
Yeah,
on
yeah,
there.
it
Don't
ain't
you?
bragging if you got it.
Exactly.
Exactly
You're in the gym
right.
every single day.
Okay.
Shut
You
off a
tell
little
him,
bit. I
Chris
see you,
Canty.
Jenna.
There you
I'm
go.
feeling humble today, so shy of flexing. I'm just going to say thank you very much for the
Well,
kind
shoot,
words.
that's something new. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, go ahead.
You know what? I'm just going to go back
Is it
to
New
old
Year's
Jenna.
resolution or something?
There we go. Yes.
What's going on?
April 13th. Developments in the Colin Kaepernick conversation, Chris Canty. Kaepernick was scheduled to work out with the Seattle Seahawks this week. However, according to reports, the trip got postponed when Kaepernick would not say if he would stop kneeling during the national anthem. Seattle is still considering bringing him in for a tryout. Chris Canty, what was your reaction to this news they heard yesterday?
To me, this is all about the NFL trying to find a solution to the Colin Kaepernick collusion grievance. That's what it's all about, and the Seattle Seahawks playing their part in doing so, because everybody can point to the Seahawks trying to find a valuable backup, but the Seahawks haven't had a real backup behind Russell Wilson for years, so I don't think there was any urgency in terms of trying to get that done. To me, this comes down to, okay, how do we find a way to make this Colin Kaepernick situation go away? The NFL tried the approach of, okay, we're just going to blackball him. We're not going to put him out there on the football field. Anybody that wants to say this is strictly a football thing, this is a football decision, and not having Colin Kaepernick on your team, that's false. That's not the truth. What the reality is the NFL is not comfortable with having Colin Kaepernick and his polarizing protest during the national anthem be a part of their business model. That's what it comes down to. So now that owners, general managers, and head coaches are being deposed, I think the NFL is realizing that there is some potential traction for Colin Kaepernick putting together a case for collusion against the league. And so this is them trying to find a solution to that. When general manager John Snyder is coming out and saying, what is your plan moving forward? I don't think it's just about the protest during the anthem. I think it's about also the inclusion of dropping that grievance case against the NFL.
That's a great point as far as the grievance. A lot of people, they won't bring that into trying to analyze what's going on with Cap. But when you have decided to sue the NFL and all their billionaire owners, you need to take in consideration, man, am I going to ever play football again? Like, once you go down that road that I'm getting ready to sue you, I threatened to sue the NFL one time when I got suspended in college. And at that time, you had to be 4 years removed from high school graduation to be able to come into the NFL. And because I had signed with a sports agent, had taken money illegally, that wasn't college football's fault. It wasn't pro football's fault. That was my fault. I knew it was wrong. I violated that. So which in turn, I lost my amateurism. Okay, no problem. I'm a professional now. Well, you have to let me come in and play professional football. They weren't going to let me. I said, no problem. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you to allow myself, because the NCAA has said I'm a professional. So I'm getting ready to sue you. It's like, hey, no need for all that. How can we make this lawsuit go away? And I had decided that it was more important for me, instead of having the banner of amateurism and putting my name on it, I agree with the NFL. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to litigate it. I'm not going to be the guy piping for amateurism. But I want to come into the league. How can you allow me to come into the league? I'll drop my lawsuit and everything else I believe. And they changed it from 4 years to 3 years. And I was the first person to come into pro football, and it was because I threatened them. And Herschel Walker had said he would do it before that, and he had went to the USFL. He didn't. I was the first person to come to the NFL from only 3 years in college, 3 years and 3 years removed from high school.
And when you say, like, you had the opportunity there, if you wanted to pursue the lawsuit, you could have, it might have taken a long time, might have cost you your entire NFL career. But if you had decided what was most important to you is setting a precedent, being what you said, the Pied Piper, it might have torn down, by the way, it might be 0 years. All the rules might have gone away, right? They could have theoretically had you won. They could have said, well, you can declare as a 17-year-old if the team will draft you. You made the decision as Chris Carter.
Right. I made the decision. It was important for my career and to start my career. And I didn't want to be the face that was going to be fighting a battle with the NFL in courts. Now, if Colin has decided that's what he wants to do, because I don't believe that collectively the 32 owners got together and said, you know something? He's not going to play football for us. But I do know in the room there were things that were said that had racial connotations to them. We know what came out from the Houston owner, and we know what Jerry Jones said in those meetings. So they didn't.
What Mike Brown is saying now, the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals?
Now, they didn't collude, but it was in their atmosphere, in their meeting, they let it be known how they felt. Now, there's also owners out there like Paul Allen, who he wasn't bothered. He thought it was empowering to let his players be able to express themselves. They still have players in some form or fashion that are honoring the protest. So this was a perfect fit for Colin. To me, the issue that I have is not being able to explain what you're going to do.
Not having a plan when you're asked about it?
Yeah, how can he not have a plan at this point? Like, to me, it's not a matter of being right or wrong. I'm not going to kneel. Oh, I'm going to continue to kneel. But to not be able to express that, to not be able to take control. Because if you want to play in the league, you should be able to answer these simple questions. And that, to me, was a little puzzling. You're getting ready to go in for a workout. Why couldn't he answer those questions that you had to be through your team of lawyers and attorneys? Like, you had to know that the team was going to ask you that question.
So at this point, it appears very clear that Colin Kaepernick has decided, I value my principles and protest higher than I value my ability to play pro football in the NFL. What I am bothered by is that he has to make that choice. I think it is a dangerous choice to force a guy to make. I think people do not follow the lines of logic past where they want to see it. I think that people that were totally fine with Mike Brown as a team owner saying to Colin Kaepernick's old teammate Eric Reed, basically, if you're going to kneel, we're not going to sign you. They don't want to think about the flip side to that coin, which is Jay-Z and Diddy get together, pool a couple $1 billion, buy a pro football team, and say the opposite. Say, we will only sign you if you will kneel, no matter what your politics are. We want that marketplace. Because once you open one door, a lot of other doors open. So I am not ignorant to the fact that Colin Kaepernick is making a choice here. Colin Kaepernick could fall on the sword. Colin Kaepernick could do what our partner Jenna Wolfe has been asking him to do for the better part of a year, which is say something publicly, explain where you're at, what you're thinking, what your motivations are. And there are a lot of things Cap could do that would probably slightly, I don't know if it would fix it, but slightly enhance his chances of playing pro football. I am just intensely bothered that he is having to make those choices. I think it's unfair, and I think it's very dangerous for what we are asking not just our pro athletes, but our fellow citizens to do. And I will say, while I have never once sat on this show or on any platform and said, you're a sellout if you don't protest. You have an obligation to protest. You should. I would never do that because I don't know that I would have the courage to do it. So I'm certainly not going to demand someone else do it. I have immense respect, though, for those that are able to put their principles and what they think is the greater good of people they don't know ahead of the greater good for their family, for the wealth you can create for people you do know, the opportunities. Because Cap, and now it would appear Eric Reed as well, are making those active choices, and that is, we need people that will do that to affect any type of change in this country.
100% agree with you. I have tremendous amount of respect for somebody that's willing to stand on one and two, stand on their feet, even when it hurts. And the fact that he's worked his entire life and potentially sacrificing his NFL career for the issues that he's protesting, which are issues, by the way, that everybody should be on board with. Every American should be on board with. It's not just a black or white thing. This is something that we all have to get behind. But the fact that he's willing to be the face of it, I have a lot of respect for him for doing that. And that being said, I think that the NFL is realizing now that they have a real issue with this collusion case, with this lawsuit that he's filed, and they're trying to find some type of solution for it.
Based on what happened yesterday, do you think Colin Kaepernick will ever play in the NFL again?
I don't think so. And that's a shame because, Nick, you've pointed this out on several occasions. When you got guys like Geno Smith and Brandon Whedon and Colt McCoy and Ryan Fitzpatrick still employed by NFL teams, clearly Colin Kaepernick has done more in our league than those guys. So when people try to say, oh, it's a football decision or he's a distraction, if the guy is capable of producing, if he's a viable backup option, we see how valuable a backup can be with the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. So, I mean, the fact that Colin Kaepernick has quarterbacked the team to the Super Bowl, that's tremendous value. So the fact that he's not in the league is an issue, but it's not based on football.
Do you think he did not assume he was going to be asked about this when he went into this meeting? Do you think that he just thought that this would be the elephant in the room that is not discussed and it was just going to be purely football related? Because I would imagine that this was going to come up and he was going to get asked about it. And a lot of whether he plays for this team is going to ride on what his decision is, right or wrong. That's sort of, it seems like where we've come to with this.
I think that people that support Cap's protest, of which I am one, we have to, I would like people that have been on the other side of this to be honest. And so I will try to do the same. I would like people on the other side that have said it's only football to admit at this point we know it's not the case. People that have said, oh, his teammates hated him, to admit that while he wasn't the most beloved San Francisco 49er, he did earn their award for courage, and he clearly has some level of support throughout the league. So if I'm going to ask them to do that, then I must, as someone that supports Cap, say this. It's possible that he is not the perfect messenger. It's possible that he got into something that he was not in the real time fully equipped to deal with. And by the way, I don't know who would have been fully equipped to deal with all of this, but I do look at, I've spent some time with Malcolm Jenkins, by the way. Malcolm Jenkins, while he and Cap are not on the same page on a lot of these things, Malcolm, it does appear, has teased out a lot of this. A lot of the pros and the cons, take the wins where you can and not always say, I am standing on this line and I am not budging. But I will say this, we do need people who won't budge. If we're ever going to affect any type of change, we do need some people who will make the sacrifice. I think it's shameful he has to make the sacrifice. But at this point, everyone has to acknowledge he is making a conscious choice. Maybe it's a choice he shouldn't have to make, but he's making a conscious choice that is putting his career not in jeopardy, but ending his career.
Each and every day, every person's making sacrifices. Now, I'm totally against racism. I'm totally against police brutality. But I'm not going to give up my platform because I believe that the platform, I can bring more light to the things that really, the things that move me, the things that are important to me, the things that are important to my family. So for me, I'm about the best players playing in the best league in the world. Colin Kaepernick is one of those players. So for me, I believe that they're absent of themselves, that he can represent what he wants to and still play in the league. I don't believe that you have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Cap should have an answer for what he's going to do for the anthem, and he's not compromising because his platform will be increased being in the league compared to keeping his stance up and being out of the league. All right? Like, what would you be wanting to be, yelling from a mountaintop to millions of people or sitting in some cave squawking to just a few people? So for me, utilize the platform of the NFL. Get yourself back into the NFL. And to me, that don't mean compromising. That means having some common sense.
What if that meant not being able to kneel?
That's okay.
That's okay.
That's what it's saying. Absolutely. The players in the league changed last year.
Right.
They kept their jobs, but also they have the platform, they have the voice, and also, you know what the owners did? The owners made millions and millions of dollars of contribution to the Players Coalition. So the players are winning by keeping their platform.
All right, we'll take a break, leave it there. More First Things First coming up right after this. Talking about the Patriots. You guys remember when Pat's offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels was going to be the Colts head coach, but then changed his mind at the last minute to stick with the Pats? Classic NFL offseason shenanigans. There was chatter that it was Tom Brady who orchestrated that, or maybe Bill Belichick who convinced him to stay. But according to reports, Robert Kraft was the driving force in keeping Josh McDaniels around. Chris Caney, what does this tell you about the future of the New England Patriots?
The leadership in the New England Patriots is going to change in the next couple of years. And I'm not talking about with the ownership. I'm talking about with the head coach, Bill Belichick. After we heard some of the grumblings after the Seth Wickersham article highlighting some of the issues that Tom Brady had with Bill Belichick about limiting the access for his trainer and TB12 method and all of that at the team's facility, you realized at that point that, okay, this marriage is about run its course. It's almost time for transition away from the head coach into another voice, another person to lead the Patriots into the future, because Bill Belichick has done a tremendous job in establishing the culture and building the framework for them to be on this dynastic run for the better part of the last 2 decades. And so now it feels like Rob Kraft has made a decision that he's going to side with the players and side with Tom Brady in terms of moving this team forward. I felt like that was the decision that was made when he decided to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, because that was not a Bill Belichick decision. That was a Robert Kraft, Tom Brady decision. So the fact that that happened, I think Bill Belichick realized, okay, this is the first time in my tenure where a player has superseded my authority here, and that's probably something that he's not on board with. So the fact that Josh McDaniels decided that he was going to, I guess, walk away from the Colts job and stay with the New England Patriots as offensive coordinator, to me, along with that came some assurances that at some point in the foreseeable future, and probably sooner rather than later, he's going to be the head coach.
Yeah, the one thing that I know in talking to Mr. Kraft, and he's a great businessman. I mean, he's made a lot of money, and he's in a number of different businesses very, very successfully, too, not just the New England Patriots. But in talking to him, he told me, I asked him, why did you get in, because he didn't necessarily have the background for a couple businesses that he's in. And I said, why did you get in these businesses? And he said, well, it came a time and point in my son's lives where people were starting to recognize them for the skill and the talent that they had. And I realized that, wow, how can these people outside, I'm their dad, I know they're talented, they're recognizing them more than I am. So I might need to create something to keep my boys from leaving me. And he was like, the number one reason why, besides them being talented and smart, I need to come up with something, man, if not, I'm getting ready to lose my boys. He said, man, having a succession plan for me and my businesses and everything I've accomplished, it's important. Like, it's important to me. So the Josh McDaniel thing, man, he wasn't going to sit back and just let the guy go out of town. He was like, man, can I have a couple words? Like, because I want a succession plan here in New England. He hears the rumors. He probably wonders, man, can I win without Brady? Can I win without Belichick? And I guarantee you, in talking to him, all the other businesses that he's involved in have been created to create a succession plan for the talented people, that being his sons, around him. And this, to me, is an extension of the other business plans that I have seen him do in recent time, and him communicating that to me. Josh is talented. Let me keep him in the fold, because I'm going to need a succession plan when Belichick and Tom Brady decide that they have had enough of pro football.
And, like, this to me, this report is confirmation of the only thing that logically made sense about that meeting when Josh McDaniels is the coach of the Colts when he walks into a room, and then he's the offensive coordinator of the Patriots when he walks out of the room. Like, I don't need to be in that room to know what happened in that room. If there's a fire in the room next door and no one's in it, and Chris Canty walks in, and when he walks out, the fire's out, I don't need to have been in that room to know Chris Canty must have put that damn fire out. Like, Josh McDaniels, given what his history was at his previous head coaching job, not necessarily treating people the best way, not necessarily making the savviest picks when it came to, Tim Tebow, not necessarily following all the rules exactly like you're supposed to.
This NFL rule book.
Right? It's optional.
Yeah.
Wonder where you learned that from.
Right. When you are given a life raft from another organization, you know what? We don't care about that. We're going to make you the head coach. And you take the life raft so other people can't use it. And then you throw it out. You only do that if you know I got a better life raft waiting for me. I've been told. And the only person who can tell him that is not Tom Brady, is not Bill Belichick. It is only Robert Kraft. So I'm not certain the timeline of it, because I bet Belichick thinks, man, I'm a coach for another 10 years. Now, maybe Robert Kraft and Josh McDaniels, when Belichick left that room, they maybe had a little side conversation. Maybe they remove him from the group text, like, don't you worry, man. We got 2 more years. I don't know that part of it. But what I do know is Josh McDaniels does not stay with the New England Patriots if he is not certain to his core, I am the next head coach of the New England Patriots.
How much is this team going to look How much is it going to change over the course of the next couple of years? Because a lot of things are going to happen. You have Tom Brady, who knows? You have Bill Belichick. You have Josh McDaniels. You have Robert Kraft, who's now getting a little bit older. It just feels like we're within the last, 1, 2, 3 years of a window of this dynasty the way it is.
I believe so. I think you're right on it, Jenna. I think the next couple of seasons, things are going to change because Tom Brady can't play forever. He's 40 years old. At some point, he's going to walk away. Rob Gronkowski's already thought about retiring, flirting with that idea. So this is going to change, and the cast in New England is going to look different. But one thing we do know is there's got to be a succession plan in place. Otherwise, Josh McDaniels does not turn down that job with the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm looking at it, and with all the noise that came out last season about how they were doing things, and there was some infighting in the building, I think it's about that time where Bill Belichick is going to walk away from the New England Patriots, and he's going to hand the baton to Josh McDaniels. They talked about it this offseason about how Belichick was going to get him involved in some of the draft plans and all of those things. I think they're getting ready for the handoff to Josh McDaniels from Bill Belichick.
All right, Chris, thanks so much.
Great job, brother.
Appreciate it. Coming up, which top seed in the NBA playoffs should be on upset alert? Next on First Things First. To the NBA, the playoffs finally are upon us. The first game on the docket, Warriors-Spurs. Even though the Warriors struggling down the stretch, going 4-6 in the last 10 games. Here's what Warriors head coach Steve Kerr had to say about his team.
We are going in to the playoffs with the idea that we're going to accept every challenge, and we're going for it. And our intention is to hang another banner. That's our goal. That's what we think is going to happen. We're confident of that.
Never more laid-back coach than Steve Kerr. Nick, what is your reaction to Kerr's comments?
You're damn straight that's what their plan should be. I understand the Houston Rockets have had a remarkable season, 65 wins. But just 2 years ago, there was a team that won 67 games, and nobody thought they had a shot to win the championship. Why? Because of these guys. They had won 73 games that year. The Golden State Warriors did. The team that I'm talking about there was the Spurs. Spurs didn't even get out of the second round to end up getting to face the Golden State Warriors. And that was before they had Kevin Durant. I'm in a position right now where I think the Rockets are better. And that is partially about the Rockets, but it's also about the Warriors this year being disappointing. So about the Warriors this year, it's one thing to not take November serious. Maybe December we'll worry about Christmas and shopping, and they got these lovely families on the team got to worry about. January, well, let's get to the trade deadline. At some point, take the year serious. At some point, remind everybody, oh, yeah, we are the most talented team that has ever existed in the history of this league. At some point, have a stretch of basketball where it's like, oh, that's how they went 16-1 in the NBA playoffs last year, including winning 15 straight to start the playoffs. They haven't done that. And so, as good as I believe Houston is, Steve Kerr is totally correct that anything short of a championship is a massive disappointment for them, the likes of which we haven't seen, I would argue, since the Heat failed to win a championship against the Mavericks LeBron's first year there. This, to me, would be more of a disappointment.
No, I think the teams are better than Dallas was and the other teams in the NBA, who LeBron beat in the East to get there, all right? It wasn't LeBron. So in doing that, in defeating, if it was LeBron in the final, and there was no Houston in the West for Dallas that year, let alone there being a Golden State and a Houston. Those teams are a lot better than that Dallas team that beat LeBron.
Agreed. But that's why maybe I said it awkwardly, because that Dallas team wasn't great. And that's why that was such a level of disappointment for that Miami Heat team. This Golden State team is great. Their competition's better. I understand that part of it.
If they lost to Cleveland, it would be a disappointment. Them losing to Houston wouldn't be a disappointment.
Really? You don't think losing to Houston wouldn't be a disappointment? This team, with this level of expectation?
Man, you're the one who taught me the history of the NBA. This team won 65 games.
Correct.
There's only 20 teams done that. Right? 15 of those teams won the NBA championship. Yes. Now, we have not seen a team in our lifetime have the type of success that we have seen with the Golden State Warriors. So the question is, the intention to hang another banner? If you could tell me over the next 3 years, the 2018, 19, and 20 season, there's one team in basketball, who would you take the chance to win the most championships? It would be Golden State.
Right.
So every year, for the next 3 or 4 years. Their intention is to hang a banner. So I'm with Steve Kerr. Absolutely. That should be their goal. There's no one that has a roster like their roster. Now, are they able to get to that? Are they able to get to the type of basketball that they've played the last 3 years? That's what we're going to have to see. Their reserve players, David West, people don't talk about him a lot. Now, he had a solid season. How is the rest of the bench?
Iguodala, Livingston.
Like, how are these players are going to play? Because we focus all the attention on the marquee players. But if they don't get great bench play, I don't see them hanging another banner this year.
Here's the thing. I agree that typically in basketball, particularly in the playoffs, we focus a little disproportionately on the marquee players. To win a championship, you usually need Shane Battier to go ahead and hit 6 threes in a Game 7. You need Mike Miller with his shoe off to go hit a couple big fourth-quarter threes. You need Danny Green if you're the Spurs to go unconscious for 3 games. But none of those teams had this type of star power. The reason why with the Warriors, I don't think, focus a disproportionate amount of attention on the stars is because they have 4 legitimate stars. They've got the worst of their stars is the defending defensive player of the year. The third player there, Klay Thompson, is a guy that you believe, and I think most people believe, one of the best two-way players in the league and one of the 3 best shooters in the history of the league. And their second best player and their best player, depending on the way you want to rank them, are 2 of the greatest players in the history of basketball. So we should be focused on the stars when it comes to the Golden State Warriors. Their ability to win a championship shouldn't come down to Shaun Livingston. Not since they got Kevin Durant.
Well, I think when you do the numbers, the one thing we struggled last year when LeBron went out of the game, Golden State's bench, the scoring dominated. The people talk about, yes, Steph, yes, KD added, yes, Draymond, but their ability to stretch out leads or their bench when their starters weren't playing up to it, get them back into games is something that we haven't talked about. And without Golden State having that extra weapon, I believe they will struggle.
Nick, what would the narrative be about Kevin Durant should they not make the finals?
I mean, I want to be careful here because what I don't want to do is have it be where in the Western Conference Finals, it's Warriors-Rockets, and whomever doesn't win, we then say, well, James Harden's a fraud if the Rockets don't win. And then if the Warriors don't win, well, Kevin Durant's a fraud. Because it can't be a situation where whoever lost choked, whoever lost sucks. Like, that's not a fair way to put it. So the narrative, if they lose to the Rockets...
We need to see the movie before we say we know what the end's going to be. It's not fair to them. It's not a good way to approach the playoffs because someone, we know, Jenna, is going to get this one. Someone's going to fit a narrative. You know, and it's going to be either in Houston or in Golden State. I just can't predict what it's going to be right now.
So if they lose in the conference finals to the Rockets, the question to me will be less about just Kevin Durant. It will be about the Warriors as a whole and be like, hold on. Remember that lunatic Nick Wright a year and a half ago who was saying maybe standing pat with the team they had after 73 wins, running it back, being able to keep that depth? Well, that's an interesting idea. Maybe we should revisit that. So I think there are a lot of things, depending on how the Western Conference Finals play out, where I don't need to see the movie is what would the narrative be on Durant if they don't get out of the first round? Oh, folks will come for him the way they came for LeBron, but 10x that. Like, they have to get out of the first round even without Steph. They got the Spurs, and they shouldn't have a problem doing that.
All right, we take a break. Coming up, look who's joining us. Martellus Bennett. Welcome back to First Things First. Welcome Martellus Bennett, who's trying to act like he's got some serious notes. You know what really helps is just holding a pen. Anytime you hold a pen, here you go, makes you look just like trust me, I know this
what
from every day.
What are you reviewing there, Martellus?
Right now, it seems like we're comparing Jarvis Landry's get money compared to what Odell Beckham should get paid. I don't know what Jarvis got paid.
$15 million a year over 5 years.
So I'm giving Odell 20.
Okay, I think you take it.
I mean, you paying all these quarterbacks $20 million a year.
We can't even introduce him before he's got his hot takes. That's all right.
I mean, go finish up.
OBJ 20.
No, he's a really good player, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to get to everything in a bit. Martellus, you spent 2 different stints with the Patriots, winning the Super Bowl in the 2016 season. And then for a few weeks last year, I asked you, what's the biggest difference between the Patriots and, say, the field, everybody else? Because from the media perspective, CC out of it. There looks like there's a huge discrepancy between the way they do business, the way they conduct themselves, the way they win, and everybody else.
I think the number one is the honesty, like what they expect from you every single day and what they want from you. And then if you're not, and honesty with every single player on the team. It's not, you don't pick and choose who has accountability and who doesn't. It's every single player is accountable for do your job. When they say do your job, that is the point. But the other thing is preparation. I've never been around a squad that prepares the way that Bill Belichick prepares the team. And Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator.
Give us an example, because we hear that all the time, that there is no team better prepared for Sunday like the New England Patriots. How is that different than the way other teams prepare?
So we're getting ready to play against the Buffalo Bills, right?
Okay.
And the scout report on the Buffalo Bills punter is like he doesn't have the best hands, and it's going to be raining. So at practice, we practice the punter dropping the ball, scooping and scoring, because it feels like it's going to happen in the game. And so I'm like, well, yeah, it might happen. You know how coach says something, everybody's doing it right. Yeah. And sure enough, on Sunday, it's drizzling. He drops the ball.
And you knew what to do.
No, we didn't do what he said. Oh. But I was on the sideline, I looked at him like, who is this guy? You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like all little things like that. He prepares us like situational football. I don't think there's another team that's better in situational football. If something happens in a game that's like an awkward call, a once in a lifetime thing, we watch it as a team and we discuss like how to be prepared for those moments, because everything he uses is a teaching moment, and he's teaching every single player on the team, and he's just a really smart guy. But then the way like Tom approached the game, Josh approached the game, Julian approaches the game, Danny, Gronk, all the coaching staff, it's just like everyone is just focused on the task at hand.
Do you think it's better to be a younger player? Would you have liked to come in and been drafted by New England, or go other places, Dallas, Chicago, some other places, and then come there as a veteran player? Because it's easier to be successful as a veteran player, or based on you would have liked to experience that as a rookie?
I mean, there's both. I mean, there's two sides of the fence. Like, if you're there the full time, you may think like, oh, you know, it's like, man, we need, you know, everyone else talking about how much fun they have. But the Patriots are super, super fun. I told guys when I got there and I've been on different teams, I was like, no, this is great. Like, you guys are winning is fun. Like, all the other stuff ain't fun. You can have as much free time as you want, but winning is what's actually fun.
Yes.
So, like, for me, yeah, I would love to grow up in a system where, you know, it had that kind of foundation and that kind of consistency and that types of, like, in an environment. The environment is consistent. Like, the people are there, the coaches are there. It's always the same. I've been in a situation where it's a coach this year, coach next year, different offensive coordinator, different, you know, tight end coach. So then you kind of ups and downs. You're trying to get people to know each other again. It's hard to build that chemistry. That's the biggest thing there. The chemistry is such a great chemistry. The guys love everyone. And most teams, they can't really deal with new players coming in because they're not used to it. You come into the New England Patriots, it's like, hey, well, you're one of the guys already, because guys come in and out so often.
So you mentioned the honesty and the preparation. The preparation, Jen is right, is something we hear about all the time. The example's a great one where he knew the punter was going to drop the ball. Now, the players didn't necessarily execute it, but and you talked about how any odd situation that happens. When you're talking about that, you don't mean something that happened in a Patriot game. It could be a Bears-Packers game from the week before, but it was a weird call. He'll drill you guys on it so you know when it happens with you guys, correct? I'm reading that the right way?
Like, there's a lot of things guys don't know. Like, on a kickoff, if the ball's close to the sideline, you put your foot out of bounds and you touch the ball, you get it at the 35.
Yes.
Like, a lot of young players don't know if on punt, if the other team taps it back, it's a free play.
Right.
You can take it, pick it up, and run
it. It doesn't matter if you fumble, you still can get the ball there.
It's a free play. So there's a lot of things that guys don't know that he always preps. As a veteran, I know it, you know, because I've been around for so long, but there's like a lot of little things that he always drills, and like those moments when they come up is like, this is a smart play. Like, because that's why the players are so smart in situations, because they know what to do in those situations.
The other thing you mentioned, though, is honesty. Like, give me, as a guy that's obviously never played in the league, I would assume.
Hold on. We have to, Did you know that Nick? I mean, just look at him. Did you know that the kid never played in the league?
I try not to judge books by their cover.
Exactly right. As an author, you should know that. Exactly right.
I'm a children's book author, which is the only book you could judge by the cover.
Okay, good point. So, but like the honesty, like I think some players probably don't like that. Like, some players, and maybe I'm wrong, like, don't like being told where they're deficient at, don't like being coached hard. What is the difference between being coached by a team or playing for a team that you're talking about? Honesty is one of the first things you said, and then you don't have to get into specifics, but other teams where maybe they gloss over some of the tougher spots.
Like, I've been on teams where, like, the quarterback not held up to the same standard as other people. Like, you know, everybody knows it. Everybody knows there's some players on the team that do certain things that aren't held to the same standard as other guys on the team. But in some places, it's like, whether you're the janitor or you're the quarterback, it's the same standard for the entire building, right? Like, this is what we expect from you, and this is what you need to give us. I don't care if you're sweeping the floor or you're throwing touchdown passes. So there's been environments where you and he's like, man, like, and it's bad because after a while, all the guys understand, like, they treat us differently, right? And when you feel like they're treating you differently, you start treating them differently.
We hear so much about the lore of Bill Belichick. There's also Tom Brady, who seems to be held in such high regard around the league. Also, that teams, young guys are intimidated by him before they even get on the field. Just tell me a little bit about the way he is, how he carries himself, the way he is in the locker room to veterans, to younger guys.
I love Tom. Tom's one of my good friends. And example on Tom, we're getting ready to play the AFC Championship against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they ain't stand a chance because of this night. The night, we were having night meetings because we played at night, and all the coaches leave, and Tom stands up in front of the team. And in that moment, he said a compliment for every single guy on the team that meant something from that guy actually as a person and a player, from scout team to Gronk. He knew every single player, what they have been doing, how they're developing, what they're getting better at. And I'm in there like, I've never seen anything like this. Like, it was no, like, great, like, you know, rah-rah, any given Sunday speech, you know, Al Pacino, you know, anything like that. It was like...
But it meant something to everyone.
Every single player was different,
the
you know?
depth for which he knew the team, it was like Belichick, who happened to be your quarterback.
Yes, and then he's just a fun guy to be around. Like, he's not a guy where he wears Tom. He's sponsored by Tom Ford and Aston Martin. Most guys like that, you feel like you can't hang out with, right? Yeah. But Tom is a great guy. He's the type of guy you want to have a beer. He might not drink beer, but if you want to have I don't drink beer either, but he's a guy you want to have a cup of coffee. He probably drinks avocado coffee. But
he took one sentence and ripped the hell out of the guy. He just doesn't strike me as, like, you see someone like Gronk, then you see Brady. I mean, does he have a sense of humor? Has he ever played a practical joke on you? Like, does he? Can you really full-on laugh with him? Because you know how prepared he is, but could he, like, loosen up and unbutton a little bit?
He is loosen up in him, but he's just a fierce competitor, right? When he's on the field, he's competing, but in the huddle, he's one of the best guys to be in the huddle with because he having fun, but his idea of fun is like kicking your ass. Like, that's his fun. Like, that's how, like, we go out there and dominate, and he loves to dominate, and that's fun.
I mean, Tom Brady is a superstar, and I try to tell people the only time he's really free is when he's on the field. Yeah. So, like, you can't expect him not to have that type of emotion. 2 questions to you. You got one game to win, and you got good experience of this. You got one quarterback. You got either Aaron Rodgers or you have Tom Brady. I know you just told me the story about Tom Brady. I know that's hard to beat. The next question is, give me one stereotype of what we think Bill Belichick is and that you've learned about him that is totally opposite of what we think about him. Who's the best? And give me something about Belichick.
First, the quarterback.
I won a Super Bowl with Tom, so I'm rolling with Tom. I think that Aaron is able to do more with the ball than Tom is able to do. I've never seen someone bend the ball the way that Aaron bends the ball. Like, he could drop it in here, he could spin it, he could throw it above you. He threw me a no-look pass one day, and it hit me in the chest. I'm like, bro, you wasn't looking at me. He's like, yeah, I like to see if you was ready. I'm like, this is his scrimmage. I mean, he's like this. I'm like, oh, he's like, you know how it is. When they looking this way, I'm like, I ran a flat route. Then he's just like, I'm like, is that coming at me? Like, is that coming at me? So the way that he could do the ball, but, like, when you win a Super Bowl with somebody, like, that's the guy you go with. The thing about Bill that people don't understand, like, Bill to me is hilarious. Like, he's really, really funny. He just has, like, that Larry David type humor, right? And he's highly intelligent.
Bless you.
And
that motivates you. Because I think right now we're going through this thing with Josh Rosen and guys who are smart. Like, please remove that. Wouldn't you much rather have a smart coach and smart guys playing with than guys who make mistakes and guys who can't remember?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about being an intelligent football player is it's easy to coach an intelligent guy. He gets it, right? He knows what he's doing. But just guys are interested in multiple things. I think that balance is what makes them good. And then when a coach understands, like, Bill said, hey, just come in and do your job. He didn't care if I was coloring or if I was drawing, if I was doing movies. They actually showed my movie to the team at the family day and things like that. So, like, his job is, like, can you help us as a football team? Or are you not a distraction? And can you go out there and play? And that's all he really worries about. He worries about you being a good football player. So, But like guys like Josh, like I'll tell guys like Josh, man, follow your dreams because football is limited. Like you get 3.5 years if you're lucky. When you're done, like life is, the average lifespan for a human being is 79 years. The average football career is 3.5 years. You have so much more life after football. Like I'm 31, I retired. Like life is just beginning for me. I feel like I'm just now starting to live. So these guys, they come in, man, read books, man, explore, travel the world, enjoy yourself. You earned it. You make this money, go to Japan by yourself, go do all these cool things, go surfing like Obama when he stopped being president.
Living his best life.
You see Obama, I'm like, man, what? I'm not mad at him. He had 8 years of stress. Now he's out there surfing, drinking Mai Tais, getting fan-fed grapes. I'm like, yeah, writing books, speaking. He's having a great time.
It's a great outlook because you can't. I'm sure there was a time in your life, or I shouldn't speak for you. I'm guessing there's a time in your life where the destination, the goal was pro athlete, where it was, and I would imagine there was a time where it's like, wow, I made it. But like you just said, you're 31 years old. You got another 60 years of living. You can't have. You don't want to peak at 28. You don't want all your best memories to be from when you were in your 20s, when you're in your 50s. And
I would say if you remember it as a football, if I remember as a football player, I felt that life, right? And football was never the destination. It was just part of the journey, right? So it was never to be a football player. Like, I'm not trying, like, no offense, like he's in a Hall of Fame player. I'm trying to be in the Hall of Fame of life. Right? And this is going to take me a lifetime to do that. I want to be a Hall of Fame as a husband, the Hall of Fame as a dad. Like, the football stuff, like, it's cool. It's going to be another guy comes in, break your records. Odell Beckham's probably going to do it, so. But there's going to be guys like those records are meant to be broken. There's going to be other guys. There's going to be another guy who's big, run fast, and could catch the ball. But there's not going to be another Martellus Bennett. And what I mean by that is the way that I live my life and the things that I do and the person that I am.
Okay, so the most fun we've had so far with you is just sharing stories with us that we're not privy to because we're here and you guys get to be in there. I mean, is there a better story than Rob Gronkowski and some of the shenanigans he gets himself into? Give me a good Gronk story. I mean, nothing shy of him like taking his shirt off and dancing on someone's shoulders on stage. We've seen 1,000 of those stories.
Man,
give me a good Gronk story.
So when Gronk first of all, Gronk is highly intelligent. So don't get it confused by the booze. And
I mean, who's smart drunk?
Yeah. So
I am smart drunk.
So Gronk, like, okay, so I come to the Patriots, I'm moving, I get traded. And I don't have a place to stay. Like, I'm in between or whatever. I'm like, hey, and Gronk was like, man, you could just sleep on my couch. And I'm like, dang, bro, this Gronk let me sleep on his couch. So I go over and sleep on his couch and hanging out on his couch. And sometimes between games, I used to live in the city. I just go to his house and crash on his couch. And he's like the ultimate teammate, right? He wants you just to see. He's like happy. He's like, man, I'm so glad you're here. It's not like a competitive thing. He's like, man, you scored a touchdown. Like, it's great. Like, when he caught his 69 touchdown, which is a big number in Gronk's life.
Yeah,
it's his life number.
We know.
So on the play, he didn't, like, he was running hurry up, and then he didn't get the call. So I'm looking at Gronk, and he's like, hey, what's the play? And then I give him the signal, and he breaks it like 40-yard, 50-yard touchdown. And first thing, he's like, thank you. He's not worried about anything else. He's like, I can't hear. I was like, no, is there such and such? And then he just takes off and runs down the middle of the field, scores a touchdown.
Patriot way, you see he didn't give us the call, what it was, though.
No, I'm not going to give you the call. Nah, so he runs the route, and Gronk, like when you watch Gronk, you be like, man, he's the tight end of the system. But when you get out there and play with him, the dude can catch, he runs routes, he's fast, he's big, and he's really smart player. And he's a competitor, and he's a great teammate.
You see him coming back this season? Do you think he's got more football in him?
I mean, I don't know. You got to ask him, but I mean, I could see him on WWE too.
So can he.
What are you doing in 5 years? What do you want to be doing? What do you want the Martellus Bennett story to be 5 years from now?
Oh, I'm still focused on building up my imagination agency. So now it's just creative director. Like, one of my ultimate goals in life is to die with no more ideas. Right? So right now I'm spending the rest of my life getting out all these ideas that I have and creating all these great stories and apps and books and things. Like, I've never wanted to be mentioned with the Jason Wittens or Antonio Gates. I always want to be mentioned with the Elon Musk and Nikola Tesla and Steve Jobs. So, like, I'm feeling like I'm beginning that journey in that race.
Why is it important to you for a lot of your content to involve young people or children?
Well, I love it because it brings families together, right? And most of my characters are characters of color because there's a lack of that, right? Where there's not a lot of representation in books and apps and tech and movies or all the media that's consumed. But I think it's important for young black kids and kids, brown and black kids, to be able to see themselves in these different roles. Like, there's not enough fantasy fiction of kids in color. So, like, because you grow up if you're introduced to the idea of superheroes looking like you from a young age, you grow up with the idea that you could be superhero. You don't have to wait till Black Panther comes out when you're 31. You know what I'm saying? Like, right? You don't have to do that. Like it empowers the youth. Like for me, a lot of my characters are young Black females because I have a young daughter. So my job is to empower her and empower all. My brother has 3 daughters. You know, my little brother's about to have another. So it's like all these girls and we have one boy, probably because we were just bad men at one point in our life. But it's all about empowerment, encouragement. And for me, I feel like where we come from, a lot of kids feel like they have to dribble a ball or catch a ball to get out the situation that they're in. But there's enough athletes. I think I'm going to be more important to the community as a creator than I am as an athlete. That's a proven method. But now I want to show kids that you could go in tech. You could do STEM, or you can make movies. You can be a film director. You don't have. It's not an anomaly when it's just like Ryan Coogler doing it, or Ava. You know, all those people. It's like I need to help raise more creators that are kids of color. So that's why I don't do football camps. We work on coding camps, you know, or try to build playgrounds all over the world because of the power of play. So
good for you.
So that's what's important to me.
Tell us a little bit about your book and where people could learn more about it.
Well, my new book is Hey AJ's Bedtime. I have the new app as well. You can download the interactive children's book app. It's narrated by me if you like my voice. And
if you don't, it's still narrated by
but
you.
There's another girl voice, and now I'm trying to get like Gronk to do a reading and things like that as well. So the book is going to be populated with multiple voices. Chris is signing up right now.
No problem.
So
no problem.
You can download the app.
Call my agent, baby Sue. We'll work it out.
Yeah, you can just download the app by searching Hey AJ in whatever app store. And you can find the book on the imaginationagency.com or Barnes & Noble. I just found out that it was in Target yesterday. So Target's is a little bit higher up than Walmart.
Oh, no problem. Target's a Minnesota company, too. Chris Carter, Minnesota Vikings, that Hall of Fame thing,
See how that
too.
works?
Yeah, I think we can work this out.
Let's do a reading at Target.
I'll do whatever you like me to do.
Thank you, man.
Anything I can do to help you out.
Martellus, man. Thank you for doing what you do. Like and it is so cool to see someone who had the career that you had be so excited about everything past it. And as a parent of 2 young daughters, as you mentioned, you have a daughter, brothers have daughters. Like the stuff you are doing, the representation stuff, it's so important and it's so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you, man.
You got me.
We have good times at the Pro Bowl, too. This is my coach in the Pro Bowl. Great guy.
Oh, yeah?
Great storyteller. We sat next to each other every day on the bus just to laugh.
Okay.
Yeah, the NFL told me beforehand, hey, Chris, there's some stipulations with this captain thing. What is it? You got to take Martellus. I was like, why? He was like, no, he likes you. I was like, okay, that's a good start.
Open invitation. Come back anytime you come.
Thank you. Continued success.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
More First Things First right after this. Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by Nets forward Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Rondae, thanks so much for being with us.
Man. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having me.
How you doing, man?
Appreciate it. I'm good.
I'm good. I'm getting ready to help you. Slide up in your chair.
Oh.
All right, yeah, you're a big,
right.
tall guy. All right, slide on up here. Put your arms up on the table. I'm going to put a pen in front of you. All right, yeah, there you go, because eventually
We gave you some stats. They're Odell stats, but don't you worry about that. Just say numbers.
And this is a guy, if people don't live in New York and
weren't
watching a ton of Nets games this year, that we were talking about this off the air. If not for Victor Oladipo, who's probably going to run away with it, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson would be one of the leading candidates for league's most improved player. Really nice jump in year 3 for a team that was better than a lot of people thought. So we really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, man.
Nice,
Appreciate
Rondae.
that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Cavaliers. They take on the Pacers on Sunday to kick off their playoff run as the 4th seed. Not a lot of teams have an answer for LeBron. Rondae, you faced LeBron and company 4 times this season. You averaged 17 and 7 in those games, and you got the unenviable assignment of guarding him. What do you think is the key to slowing him down? Because we're never going to say stopping him. We're barely going to say, just a tidge less, just slowing him down.
I would say it's tough. LeBron's phenomenal. Best player I played against during my NBA professional career. It's just tough, once LeBron goes into that beast mode, 4th quarter, attack mode, it's like, wow, what do you really do? If he's coming downhill, he's 250, 6'9". It's pretty tough. So I would say the biggest thing is just being aggressive, being confident, knowing like you can make things tough for them. It's just really tough at the end of the day.
I went to both of the Nets-Cavs games in Brooklyn this year. Mm-hmm. You guys beat them once and played them real tough the second time until the very end of the game.
He was there to check you out.
So
we made a few trips to the Barclays this year, so we checked you out.
We saw you play against the Rockets a bunch of times, but in those games, you guys played the Cavs really well this year.
Yeah.
What was it about? More about them, more about you guys. What was it about that gave you guys a higher level of success against the Cavs than most other teams?
I was just saying not being afraid, not backing down just because LeBron's walking in the building. We were pretty locked in, pretty focused. Coach gave us a game plan. We executed it. That's pretty much what it is. And then me being a defender, man, just leading that with my energy, leading it with stops.
Now, if you're going to beat the Cavs, or the other 7 teams, the Cavs are the favorite, even though they're only the 4th seed. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things, even from a game plan? We saw you guys have some success. Mm-hmm. What will be the game plan for teams in the East? What do you have to do against the Cavs? Absent of, okay, let's contain LeBron James. What is your coach? What's the message?
Just, be solid. Don't try to do anything extra. Don't try to get out of your lane. Stay focused on the game plan. I feel like that was the biggest message for us, just staying focused on our game plan, executing the plays, screens, getting downhill, just being aggressive. Sometimes they may not get back in transition defense, just being locked in.
Now, my next question to you is, of the 7 teams in the East, give me a team that you think potentially, if it's Toronto, and why, or if there's someone else that we might not be mentioning. I know a lot of times as a player you watch shows and be like, man, Washington, I believe, going to give someone the ball. In your opinion, who do you think in the East that we might not be talking about might surprise LeBron and the Cavs?
I'll have to definitely go with Toronto. Just the way they're playing has been phenomenal. The guys they have leading them, they've been playing some really good basketball at a high level. And I feel like they come out ready like they've been. I feel like it'll be Toronto.
Well, let's start with this game right here with the Cavs and the Pacers. Who do you like and why?
I'm definitely going to go with the Cavs just because, first round, LeBron's locked in. I'm sure he put his phone down already, social media. Zero dark mode, so I'm definitely going to have to go with Cleveland.
The guy I mentioned off the air and alluded to him here is the key for the Pacers to have a shot, Victor Oladipo. Yeah. As another guy that made a big jump in year 2 to 3. For Oladipo, he's a year older in his career, 2 years old, so year 4 to 5. But what's the key, do you think, in his progression, in him going from what people thought was a disappointing number 2 overall pick to a guy who's going to be maybe an all-NBA performer? What's been the key to what he's done this year in your eyes?
I would say he stayed consistent, just as far as him being aggressive, him being their leader, him being focused. You could tell by his approach, and even when we played against him, man, he was locked in. I would, try to throw him off or make a joke or something, and he stayed locked in and focused, and that was pretty surprising for me.
We talk so much about teams that are lacking in a certain area. So if they're not playing, like the Cavs aren't playing great defense, but they're just going to turn it on when the playoffs start, or whatever it is, transition basketball. Talk to me as a player of what that means, of being able to just flip a switch and turn something on that you maybe haven't been doing, like, say, defense, for example.
I would say it's just what's at stake, what it means the most to you, and it's about winning at the end of the day. And I know you got to win majority of the games in the playoffs to, progress and move to the next seed. So they all realize that. They're all grown, and they all hold each other accountable for their play and how they perform. So I feel like that's really what it comes down to, holding each other accountable.
Okay, cool. Rondae, stick around. We got a lot more to talk to you about. Coming up, who's more important to the Warriors? Is it KD? Is it Steph? I don't know. Is it Nick?
We got a real basketball expert.
I'm Jenna Wolf, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long.